Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Terror has struck at the heart of New York City, as it now does with disturbing frequency. An ISIS-inspired suspect detonated a bomb in a crowded subway passage right in the middle of morning rush hour. The explosion sent commuters fleeing. Thankfully, only a few people were hurt, most severely the bomber himself. That man has been identified as Aqaid Ullah. He's a 27-year-old Bangladeshi immigrant who came to this country in 2011 through a chain migration visa. Fox senior correspondent Rick Leventhal joins us from New York City with more. Rick.
And Tucker, the investigation aggressively underway. A law enforcement source tells me they don't believe the suspect had any co-conspirators. So in other words, they believe that he did, in fact, act alone. They say that he made the device at work. He told them, authorities, that he made the device at work. He was employed by an electrical company. And I'm told that he had extensive travel overseas since arriving here in the U.S. in February 2011. Aqaid Ullah, 27, lived in Brooklyn, but from Bangladesh. The Department of Homeland Security confirming that he arrived here on an F-43 family immigrant visa. He was a lawful permanent resident, as you mentioned, benefiting from the extended family chain migration. There are questions about whether he was inspired by ISIS. He told investigators apparently that his attack was revenge for U.S. attacks overseas. But if his goal was to inflict damage and death, Tucker, he failed miserably. Authorities say Ullah had a low-tech pipe bomb strapped to his body with Velcro and zip ties, and when he detonated it in an underground passageway between the Port Authority and Times Square, the bomber was the only one seriously injured, with lacerations and burns to his hands and abdomen. 3 other people were hurt, complaining of headaches and ringing ears, but not serious injuries at this point. The Port Authority police were first on scene to contain the suspect, but there was a massive response by the NYPD, MTA, state police, and the FBI, now investigating the suspect's home, his family's home, his social media accounts, and any devices he might have been connected to or had access to for any clues to his inspiration and possible accomplices. So, Tucker, clearly this city was lucky. More people could have been hurt, and clearly, Tucker, New York City remains a top target for terrorists.
Apparently so. Rick Leventhal, thank you for that. So what type of bomb was the attacker using, and what could we do to block attacks like this in the future, if anything? Those questions for our next 2 guests. Waleed Phares is an expert on terrors in the Middle East and has been for a long time. Johnny Joey Jones served as a bomb disposal expert in the Marine Corps in both Iraq and Afghanistan. They both join us tonight. First to you, Waleed, the question we always ask. How do we prevent attacks like this in the future?
I am not concerned about the investigation. They're going to get us a lot of information about himself, his network, where he's coming from. I am concerned about the fact that we were not able to detect him and therefore vetting him before. The real battle is going to be the vetting system.
But with the scale of our immigration into this country, how could you possibly vet all those people?
Well, you have a problem of immigration that we need to respond to, regardless of terrorism. And then you have a problem of terrorism, the jihadists connecting to these holes and loopholes inside the immigration system. So we need to be smart, making sure that we have a government ability to detect on the one hand and disconnect that threat from the windows they're using to get to the United States.
Johnny, this attack seems like it could have been far worse. Why wasn't it?
Well, yes, it absolutely could have been far worse because he made it to that place with a bomb on his body. More than likely, there are 2 scenarios here on why this didn't work well. Either he attempted to make a high explosive like ammonium nitrate or TATP or some of the things you've heard of and failed in the chemistry, the actual mixture of the component, in which when he went to detonate it, the little blasting cap went off, but the actual high explosive didn't. Or he did what I believe to be more common option. He tried to use a lower explosive like black powder, almost like gunpowder. And when you do that, the container you put it in has to stay contained. That's why they use pressure cookers and threaded pipe. It has to stay contained and allow for enough time for that low order, that low explosive to actually turn into an explosive or to actually explode. When that happens, if you don't do it right, if that container has any weak spots, he'll do what's called venting, where it actually just sucks in oxygen and starts to burn instead of explode. I think more than likely, with the very little information, which is the video, the picture, and what we hear, more than likely it probably was a low explosive like black powder. A lot easier. You can buy it off the shelf. There's no chemistry involved.
Well, that's
this
the
guy
thing.
seems to have acted alone.
He apparently told investigators from his hospital bed this afternoon that he got the instructions for this bomb on the internet. Is that plausible?
Absolutely. So you got to think of two things when it comes to making a bomb. The thing that goes boom is your main charge. That's a chemical that you have to make or acquire. And then the apparatus, the whatever it is, anything in Walmart that turns a light bulb on or makes a noise can be used to trigger a bomb. Any battery can be used to set it off. So, you know, there are two things you make here. One is an electronic circuit that sets it off. The other is the actual explosion that explodes. Usually both are homemade in Afghanistan or Iraq, and usually both have opportunities to go wrong. I can tell you I'm sitting here today alive because dozens of them just weren't made right.
Well, that's good news for you and for commuters this morning. Waleed, the thing maybe that's most troublesome about this is that this guy was basically succeeding in the United States. He came over, he had a hack license, a license to drive professionally in New York City. He was working for an electrical contractor, apparently, been here for a while, and yet he tried to detonate a suicide bomb this morning. How do you get from one to the other?
That's a great point, Tucker. Basically, number one, what has happened now and will be happening is that an unsuccessful operation will do what? It would teach the next wave of jihadists. What we discussed right now, we are telling the other side that to have a successful bomb, you need to do it in a better way. But that's the system of democracy. Why he actually came here, basically, what we don't know, was he already indoctrinated overseas? Where did the indoctrination happen? That's my real concern.
But what's terrifying is he wasn't an outcast. I mean, he was doing what immigrants are supposed to do. He had a house. He was here living with his family. He had a series of jobs. I mean, he doesn't...
Well, that's your response, guess to whom? To the previous 8 years of the Obama administration, where we were told, oh, they don't have a job, they are frustrated, only the bad guys. Well, that's a successful guy. That's exactly the point you're making right now.
Which is terrifying.
Which is terrifying because they could use success if they are indoctrinated.
Scary. Well, Johnny, thank you both very much.